Do you dream of fairies and princesses? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today on the show I have Andy from the DCast Podcast Network joining me to discuss and celebrate 10 years of the Disney Nighttime Spectacular World of Color at Disney California Adventure. World of Color opened on June 11th, 2010, and has been delighting Disney fans ever since. Today we take a look back at the numerous iterations of the show that we've seen through the years, as well as all of the ways the technology and show has been plussed since the very beginning. I truly can't believe that it's been 10 years since this show debuted. I can remember the hype and anticipation for the opening like it was yesterday, but it delights me to see how often the show is updated and reinvented. The celebrating for World of Color begins right after this. One of my favorite Disney Parks attractions is the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. Its mix of thrills, storytelling, and effects is among the best we see in Disney parks. Right now, over at DisneyCoastToCoast.com, you can get yourself an exclusive compilation episode of DCTC entitled Tower of Terror Behind the Fifth Dimension, where I chat with Mark Silverman, who is the voice of Rod Serling in the attraction, and DJ McHale, who took inspiration from the attraction to write and direct the wonderful World of Disney movie, Tower of Terror. This exclusive episode can't be found in your podcast feed. The only place you can get it is by visiting DisneyCoastToCoast.com and clicking on Exclusive in the menu, or going directly to DisneyCoastToCoast.com/exclusive. But the Tower of Terror compilation episode isn't the only one you'll get. There are 4 more exclusive DCTC compilation episodes waiting for you in the same place. So write it down right now, and don't forget to visit DisneyCoastToCoast.com/exclusive.
Grab the confetti and celebrate a Disney anniversary.
Hello, Andy, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, your first time here.
Thanks, Jeff, for having me. I have been listening to you guys for a long time, and I'm just so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for listening, and I'm excited to have you here to talk about, can you believe it's been 10 years?
I feel incredibly old.
Yes.
I saw The World of Color exactly almost a year to the day after it came out, and I can't believe it's been 9 years since then, and then 10 years since it boggles my mind.
Can you believe I was there? The first performance open to the public. I got to the park hours before opening, got literally front and center for World of Color, and just sat there all day. There was, that's how it worked that opening day.
Yep. I was actually, the first time I saw it was the opening day for the new Star Tours and for the Little Mermaid attraction in DCA.
Wow.
And so it was a crazy, crazy day, because you had, for Little Mermaid, you don't see lines going outside to the gate for it, but that day there was, and that was also the first time I ever saw World of Color. So
listen, whenever there's anything new at Disney, there's going to be a massive line. It can be a churro, it can be a character, it can be anything, and there will be a massive line for it. So yeah, World of Color, like I said, I was there day one experiencing that, and the hype for World of Color was super, super real. Like, this was, let's face it, this was a big deal in the sense that this was the beginning of DCA 2.0, and they made no secret of that. They very much promoted, Paradise Pier is getting a whole makeover. It started with like Silly Symphony Swings and stuff like that. The Little Mermaid ride was going to be coming, and Cars Lands was going to be coming, and Buena Vista Street was going to be coming, and it all started with World of Color. And it was quite a great first impression, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
To put, it's been covered many times that DCA was not the theme park that people wanted. And it was the company admitting and saying, we recognize that and we're going to fix it, and trust us, is what I feel like World of Color was. And, it worked as far as I'm concerned, right?
Yeah. So funny about DCA is I grew up in Southern California, But I actually lived in Ventura, so I went to Magic Mountain a lot. I went to Disneyland a lot too, but I was a lot closer to Magic Mountain. And I remember the first time I went to DCA, I'm like, this feels like Six Flags Magic Mountain. And then
wow.
to go back and be like, oh wow, they're really when Bob Iger took over, he's like, yeah, we goofed. World of Colors here, Silly Symphony Swings, Carland, Buena Vista. It was just like, wow, Disney is taking the park seriously now. And it was for Disney fans, it was such a breath of fresh air, knowing that the company was now being steered in the right direction.
Yeah, some of the things that they did to make, 2.0 happen, if you had to pick one, what do you think is the best improvement that they did?
For me, I mean, I love Cars Land. I love what they've done now with Pixar Pier. I just saw Pixar Pier this winter. I'm glad I went. We went on a whim. I'm glad I did because we were planning to go again in the spring, and obviously we can't right now. It's Buena Vista Street though, because I love old Hollywood. I love Hollywood folklore, and just it feels like Main Street, but not. And then you have Oswald thrown in there. I'm just like, it just melts my heart every time I'm in there. Just the feeling of going down Buena Vista Street. It mirrors Marceline and Main Street a little bit, but it's also part of Walt's story, and it also goes on with the theme of a storytelling park, which is what Walt wanted. So I love Buena Vista Street. I think that was the perfect, grand opening as you get into DCA.
I 100% agree. I was not expecting you to say that just because I feel like most people would be like, out of everything new, because there's a lot of great new stuff. And let's face it, Cars Land is maybe more impressive and World of Color, a great nighttime spectacular. But Buena Vista Street to me is just, quite literally the first impression.
Yeah. And how they have the different cast members in character of the time. They don't have that in Main Street, and they're interacting with you, and it just I love that. It just gets you in the mood to just have an amazing day, even if you're just there for a few hours. I just love sitting in DCA in Buena Vista Street and just people watching. It's just I love it.
Yeah, it's funny because Magic Kingdom does have those citizens of Main Street, which sadly Disneyland doesn't. And I wish they would bring that over here. I wish we would get a trolley show and all that fun stuff, but Magic Kingdom gets it. So Buena Vista Street at least has some of that, which is really, really nice. And today we're going to be talking about the different versions of World of Color. There have been many in a short 10-year period. No, we're going to talk about like the main ones. There are some that were like one night only events and stuff. We won't be talking about that so much. So this is kind of the whole sweeping range of World of Colors that we've got through the years. And, for me, World of Color was a big announcement, but did you go to the first D23 Expo by any chance in 2009?
The first one, no, I didn't go until 2015 was my first.
Okay, so in 2009, which was pretty much a year before World of Color opened, Steve Davison, who is the lead Imagineer on World of Color, he did a whole presentation basically talking you through the entire thing and showing slides and such, and it was a big, really popular panel that year, and the buzz was real. And they continued the buzz with some nice TV ads, which I always find funny. Having grown up in Massachusetts, that was one of the things when I moved to Southern California. I was like, oh, they have commercials for Disneyland. That's kind of funny. And where do you live? You live up north, right?
I am in Southern Oregon, Ashland, Oregon, yes.
So do those Disneyland commercials reach Oregon?
Yes, they do. And it was weird for me because growing up in Southern California, they had them, but they're completely different here because there, you have the SoCal Pass and always advertising. Oh, if you live between zip codes 90000 and 94400, you get the 1 day passes that were cheap at the time. And growing here, it's like, oh, these 3 day hopper passes, this and that. Or I'm like, oh, that's weird.
Yes.
So it's amazing how they market the parks, not only, in Southern California and California differently, but in other parts of the country and even other parts of the world. You go to airports like in Eastern Europe, they have those little brochure things for Disneyland. You're like, what on earth?
Yeah.
Okay, United.
Yeah, so, the buzz was real between that panel at D23 and then the commercials on TV. And I even remember being in Disney California Adventure for the weeks leading up to the premiere. And then, toward the end of the night, they'd start testing the fountains. Obviously, no lights, no projection, no music or anything, but they just turn on the fountains and the screens and stuff, and I just remember freaking out even over that and just being like, oh my god, this thing is massive, and just it was some serious build up hype for this, and I loved that about listen, I love anticipation. It's one of my favorite things on earth. So the anticipation for World of Color was super, super real. Before we get into a show, I do want to mention when they were creating the show and developing it, the team members were told that they could not have fountains with multiple heads or moving heads. And guess what? Walt Disney Imagineering created it, or at least found a company to outsource to that created it. So that's one amazing thing. Team members were also told that they couldn't create color and light in fountains. And guess what? They found a way to do that as well. So, not the first fountain show on Earth, but definitely breaking a lot of barriers. And I think that that's fantastic and wonderful. Now, before it even premiered to the public, there was this world premiere for World of Color, of course, with distinguished guests and stuff, and Bob Iger and a lot of people talking. And Mickey Mouse was there, of course. And did you watch this video?
Yes.
Okay.
It felt weird.
It felt a little weird because Mickey Mouse goes up to Dick Sherman, who is, with his brother wrote the song World of Color for the wonderful World of Color TV show, had a bit of a strange interaction with him, and then Terry Hatcher randomly, and like Mickey was calling these people by name, and it was just this weird little thing he did before he got up to stage, and they brought out Tom Staggs, who at the time was chairman of Parks and Resorts. I like Tom Staggs, but his interactions with Mickey were awkward.
Very awkward, yeah. He didn't know what to say, like, is this a person? Or, it was really weird.
And it was actually really impressive, because then Bob Iger came out and made his little speech, and I was like, Bob knows how to talk to Mickey. I'm like,
yes, he does.
He's clearly been doing this job for a while, and he had really good, natural interactions with Mickey Mouse. And that's a weird thing to be good at, but he is. And, still to this day, I think we still prefer hearing from him over the new CEO. And
yes.
He's just, I don't know, more personable.
Give us the first Bob. Give us the first Bob always.
Yes. So, there was this funny moment where Bob Iger takes the baton from Mickey and tries to start the whole thing. And of course, he doesn't have the magic that Mickey does. So it's a bit of an epic fail, and he gives it back to Mickey, and the show begins. And they actually had some fireworks as part of it, which typically are not part of World of Color, but on some special occasions, they do bring in fireworks. So, it was a weird little world premiere, but nonetheless, a big thing that they did, and quite an impressive nighttime spectacular, and something that Disney California Adventure desperately needed. So it worked.
Yep. It's funny too, because before moving to Oregon, after living in Southern California, I lived in Las Vegas, and while I was living in Las Vegas, they have the Bellagio fountains.
Totally.
Which I remember I used to take the bus on the Strip every day from home to work every day. And sometimes if I had time, I would stop and get off the Bellagio and just watch those fountains. And I remember thinking when this was announced, like, there is no way they're going to top Steve Wynn in the Bellagio. Vegas has got him. I'm going to go to this thing. It's going to be some piddly little, squirting water with some colored flashlights. And then when they debuted this and I saw this on YouTube, I'm like, oh, crud. And then I saw it for the first time in real life. I'm like, okay, they've won up Vegas. And I couldn't believe that they did it, and how well they did it, and how they told a story with the World of Color. And I was just completely mesmerized by it. And Disney, they kind of set the standard for what a water show can be now, which, you thought Steve Wynn and the Bellagio in Las Vegas did it. No, they just upped the ante. They said, hold my drink.
Yeah. The Bellagio does a great job, don't get me wrong. But
I still love it.
The benefits that they have is they have a huge body of water. But at the same time, I feel like that actually takes away a little bit, because World of Color is a very intimate show, considering how big the show is. And, having done that first day literally front and center, I was soaked by the end of it. You can't get that way at the Bellagio, because the fountains are so far away. And they only use white light. I will say, though, in more recent years, probably because of, some of the technology used in World of Color, they have started using projection for certain things. I know they did like a whole Game of Thrones one, and they've done some cool stuff, and they've plussed it since World of Color has opened, but you're not getting the colors and the effects in a lot of cases that we get from World of Color. So although still great and still an awesome thing to see in Vegas, very different. But yes, I think that was the reaction everybody had was, oh, how is this going to be different the Bellagio, other than the fact that Disney characters will be part of it. So
Exactly.
it's pretty cool. Now, before we even get into the show, let's talk about this pre-show that they had for like at least the first summer. I sent you a video of this, but did you ever witness this?
I've never witnessed this. No, I never saw this in real life. So, this was a first for me.
Okay, so they had a pre-show at least the first summer, because people waited a very long time, and I forget exactly how many sections they had. I think it was 6 sections, actually. I think it was one for each character, because they had these giant light-up, kind of like Main Street Electrical Parade type of puppets. In fact, some of these were later used in Paint the Night.
Yeah.
And we had Mike Wazowski, Sebastian Lumiere, Genie, and Tigger. And I think it was those 5. So maybe there were 5 sections. Basically, you were broken up into color sections as to where you could watch the show from. Yep. And then they had live singers, and they basically did like this little mini parade dance party thing while you were waiting for the show.
Felt very carnival.
I love it, personally. I thought it was cool.
It felt a little awkward to me. I don't know. Having never seen it in real life, I'm sure if I had been there, it felt differently. It just felt very just like, okay, you can't see in the video, at least couldn't see much else but the characters. So I didn't know that was a thing until today.
Well, that's what I loved about it, was the fact that they didn't announce this. So this was not a known thing. And it was just literally, listen, after sitting there all day long, we're like, something to watch, something to see. Like, so I was just thrilled, and I was like, this is cool. And it was really funny when Paint the Night premiered 10 years later. Was it 10 years later? It would have been 5 years later.
It's 5 years later.
Yep. Oh my God, I can't even believe Paint the Night's 5 years old at this point. That's insane to me. But using those characters in that parade totally made sense, and it was funny as I saw them. I was like, oh my gosh, it's my World of Color characters. Fantastic.
I had no idea. I was like, oh.
So these days that pre-show is gone, but now we get the Fun Wheel Challenge, which, have you ever played this?
Once, and I wasn't even there. I just saw it as I was walking by.
It's basically like a match game where you have to match the pattern of lights on the fun wheel on your phone. And they say the prize is, if you're like the fastest one to do it, you can control the wheel for a certain amount of time, like the lighting on the wheel. I don't know if that's true or not, because
I've never heard anybody has actually been able to do that. Yeah,
because I play that game sometimes and I'll do it super fast. I'm like, there's no way anybody could do it faster than what I just did. Yet I'm not winning. Like, I call BS. But regardless, it definitely passes the time as you're waiting for the show. So let's finally get into the show. The original World of Color, very much still the main show today that we see, with some changes, but when it's not a seasonal thing or a special event thing, it is primarily 90% or maybe 85% of what we saw on this opening day. And, I love that it begins with that original Wonderful World of Color TV show theme.
Yes. Everything about, I am such a Walt enthusiast and just an old Hollywood enthusiast that every time I hear that opening color, those notes, I just get chills every time, because everything about Walt and what he stood for and moving forward and the entertainment industry and storytelling, I resonate with that. So when I hear that, it's like, oh yes, that old ABC show, World of Color. And for the Disney enthusiasts, it means so much. So it might go over some young kids' heads or other people's heads, but this is just, it's letting, especially during that time, it's letting the Disney fandom know we are taking Walt's legacy seriously now. And everything about this is going to honor Walt Disney. We're not just trying to get people through the gate. We're not just trying to put up attractions and, sell McDonald's, like they did for a while in DCA. We are here to not only entertain you and your family, but to honor the legacy of Walt Disney and what he wanted to see in a storytelling park.
In fact, you even hear that Walt Disney presents
the
Wonderful World of Color. The thing I really love about that is that when it starts, you hear that song, and it's a little it's a little grainy, still a little old-fashioned sounding, and it's at a volume that you're like, okay, so this is what the show's going to be. And then at some point, shortly after, they're like, oh no, like that was a 3. Let's bump it to an 11. And they do. And then you're like, oh, so this is the power of this show. All right. Very cool. As much as I love that opening, I got to tell you, something happens at the beginning of this show that I absolutely hate. And World of Color does it too much. Do you have any idea what that might be?
I do not know.
I could not. hate the fact that this show starts with a projected quote.
Oh,
and
yep.
I love quotes. I'm all for quotes, Disney quotes especially. But for a show that, like, you know, is a lot of projection on water, which is not the easiest thing to see, especially if the wind is acting up, and especially depending on your angle of the screen. There are a lot of people who cannot read this quote. And the quote is, "Every child is blessed with a vivid imagination." And it's a lovely Walt Disney quote, and it makes sense with the show. It drives me nuts when they project quotes on this show. I'm like, nobody can read this. 10% of these people can read this. Please, no quotes. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, you think they would be able to put it up on the, you know, or not the fun wheel, but on I keep wanting to call it screaming. It's not screaming
An Incredicoaster.
On Incredicoaster.
Just get rid of it. No, because then it would be so far away you still couldn't read it. Like,
very true.
No quotes. Do not project quotes, please.
Or just get like Neil Patrick Harris to say it or something like
please
that.
Please don't. No, we'll get to that. But yeah, it's just a weird choice to me, and I appreciate the sentiment. I just think it's really wrongfully placed. But in any case, let's talk about, as I said, we're not going to go through this entire thing scene by scene because we have so many shows to get through. But what are some of your favorite moments in the original World of Color?
It was just different. It was something no one had ever seen before, no one had ever done before. And to take the Disney characters and put them into this show and not just have waving water, but to have the actual, you know, scenes from the films projected. And I'm trying to remember if the whole, like, pachyderm scene was in, or maybe I'm thinking of Fantasmic. I'm probably thinking of Fantasmic.
So now that's a problem I have with the show as a whole, is the similarities to Fantasmic.
It does, yeah.
Here's the thing, like, for a very, very, very long time, the only place you would see those mist screen projections at a Disney park was Fantasmic, whether it was here at Disneyland or at Walt Disney World, and they were, like, special to that show. And I get it, Fantasmic had been along for a very long time. Maybe it was time to share the technology or something, but that was the one thing that I was like, okay, like, when Fantasmic premiered, this was, like, mind-blowing. I'd never even thought of anything like this. When World of Color did it, it was like, okay, it's cool. It's still cool. But, yeah, they're bigger over in World of Color. That's cool, I guess. But, because of that, I always am a little harsh on World of Color when it comes to them repeating stuff that is in Fantasmic, which happens a good amount. In fact, in the original World of Color, they had a whole Chernobog Night on Bald Mountain sequence. And I'm like, are we really going to go like the villain route here, considering the show that originally used this technology across the street is still doing it today, and it's all about villains? So that's one of the things that I was just like, about, you know, had a hard time buying into.
One thing, though, I think one of the best parts of the show is the up sequence, though. When you just have the one balloon come up and the other balloon come up, and then they all start to rise, and the music starts playing from that. And, you know, my spouse and I that saw that the whole movie means a lot because our story is very, very similar. So it's just like it takes me right back to that film. You're just like, oh my gosh, okay, not gonna cry, it's fine. And it is so subtle at first. You're like, balloon, oh, and then like, why?
And it's funny, they know people are gonna react that way, so it's a very short segment. It's about 20 seconds long, but it still gets people.
And they just bring you right back up.
Yeah, I love the Buzz Lightyear segment. That has always, from day one, been a very impressive segment to me, where I was like, oh, okay, so that's what this technology can do. Like, very fast-paced, exciting. I think the movement of the characters, like, jumping all over the water is really fantastic. The way that they laser in Zurg is very cool. Some serious, like, action and energy happening when it comes to the Buzz Lightyear segment. And then as far as, like, the breathtaking moment for me, it's the Pocahontas stuff, which is funny because I'm not really a big fan of the movie Pocahontas, which is, by the way, getting ready to celebrate its 25th anniversary this month, I think. 25 years,
wow.
But in any case, I love the music of Pocahontas, and I think that they do a great job. the song's Colors of the Wind. Well, the way that they paint with color on that water during that segment, I think is some of the best stuff that we get in World of Color. I think it's fantastic. I also love the rain effects that we get during the Old Mill segment. Do you remember this? Where it's like rain upside down, sort of, like the way that the fountains jump and the way that they light it. It's a very, very, very cool effect. And I love that.
I think what I love about the show in general is just the very creative ways they use both shadow and light and a lot of filmmaking techniques in getting the image out to the audience, which again is just it's a testament to what the Imagineers and just their ingenuity in making something that's never been done before. Yeah. And with integrating lasers and fire and flame, they really put you in there when you're really just looking at a wall of water.
Yeah. Now, speaking of fire, Hellfire was originally part of World of Color, and Hellfire is one of my favorite Disney songs of all time from Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's so sad that it was quickly removed. It did not last very long, but they had a great Hellfire segment. By the way, you can watch all of these on YouTube. If you have not seen some of these segments, check them out. Just, Google or search the world premiere of World of Color for this. And, they did have a Pirates of the Caribbean segment. My same argument that I have with them using it in Fantasmic is it's the only segment that isn't an animated film. And I don't know why the inconsistency drives me nuts, but I get it. Pirates is popular and the music's great. And I will say the score to those live action films is phenomenal. And the way that the water is choreographed to it is beautiful. So I like that it's there. I just don't feel like it fits the show.
I kind of wish it would focus a little bit more on the attraction and not the film, perhaps. But the film, especially when it came out, was so popular. I think they were on the third one by that time, maybe coming up on the fourth one. Yeah. It was still a hot commodity. And so they were like, yep, we need to capitalize on that. Who knows? It may not have been an Imagineering decision. It may have been a corporate decision. And I understand they have this very hot, IP right now. They want to get it up there. And plus, when that music does start, you're like, it gets you excited. Even if you're not a fan of the more recent Pirates of the Caribbean film, you hear that opening dun 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 dun. You're just like, it gets you excited.
It's a very, very, very good score. 100%. Yes. Now, this, toward the end of World of Color is So Close from the film Enchanted, which, not a film that they pull music from super often, but around this same time period in Magical, which was the fireworks show at Disneyland, they did bring in some Enchanted music there too. So there's clearly somebody working there who loved the music of Enchanted. And brought it in. I love So Close. I think it's great. It's like really like the heartfelt moments of World of Color when they're showing a montage of a bunch of different things. And that's toward the end of the show. And one thing I got to say that this is kind of a rule with Disney nighttime spectaculars in general that I never really get. But at the end of World of Color, they kind of have like this flashback montage of everything you've just seen. I'm like, okay, this isn't a 2-hour movie. It's a 25-minute show. I really don't need to be reminded what I just saw. And I find it to be a very strange choice. They do it with projection shows on Cinderella Castle. They do it a lot. And I've just always found it to be a weird choice.
Maybe it's just like you've took in so much they want to remind you, hey, you saw this, tell your friends.
I think it's supposed to be like this emotional climax of look at everything you just experienced. I'm like,
look at the journey we were just on.
But I literally just experienced it. I don't need to be reminded. I just find it a little bit strange. But let's hop over to the original show, but the 2.0 version. Just a few changes that happened here. Hellfire, as I mentioned, was deleted, as was the Chernobog sequence. The pirate sequence, therefore, became longer. And one thing that we didn't talk about that was cut because I think this was just, they were just having so many technical problems with it. But in that original show, they had like these giant white globes that would raise out of the water with projectors inside of it. And, for some moments it was great. During like Under the Sea, they would have different sea creatures playing their instruments. One of my favorites was during the whole Buzz Lightyear segment, like they came out as the aliens and it was like their face, ooh, they'd do that whole thing. It was cute. It's not something I miss in particular, but I do think about that a lot. I was like, oh, there was this piece of World of Color that like very few people witnessed and most don't even know about at this point.
Yeah, I had no idea that was even there until you sent those videos. Like, oh, that's a thing. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how long it lasted, but I remember seeing them, and then I remember one day being like, oh, those don't exist anymore. And, like, they were fully submerged in the water, so you did not see them until, like, they poked their little heads out of the water, and, you know, they projected stuff from inside, and like I said, I don't really miss it, so it's okay, but it does always make me sad to be like, oh, that was an original vision that sadly no longer exists. But let's move on to some of the more special stuff that World of Color has done. In 2010... they were promoting their new Tron movie, and they did like a little tag at the end of World of Color that was, as a person who's never seen like a second of Tron movies, because I have zero interest, this is one of the coolest World of Color things to ever happen. Because it was right at the end of the show when like they start projecting World of Color on the water, and it starts like getting staticky and glitchy. And then the World of Tron comes in. It's a few minutes long. It's like this, kind of like a trailer for the new movie. And one of the best things to come out of this was, from my memory, this is the first time that they had like the LEDs all over the California Screamin' at the time, now the Incredicoaster. And this is the first time that they started using that roller coaster track as part of the background of the show. Yeah. And they had tons of lights on it, and they projected on that track, and like, it's obviously used a ton now because they invested in doing that. But to think that that investment was made for this little 2 or 3 minute segment is incredible.
Yeah. And it's funny because at the same time, correct me if I'm wrong, they also put the whole Tron, I can't remember what it was called. It was the Mad Hatter's dance party, but it was before that. It was
Electronica.
Electronica,
which was
amazing. Also in conjunction with that. And they were like, say, hey, yeah, there's this thing going on over here. It was both an advertisement for the movie and what was going on over in Hollywoodland.
Yeah. Electronica, I still miss. Like I said, never seen Tron, don't have any interest. But Electronica, I would kill to have that back. It was a great, great, great time. But yeah, the LEDs added to the coaster track, amazing. And you know, obviously now they've incorporated it into the original World of Color show as well. So the show keeps changing in small ways, and it keeps getting plussed, and I love some of the different things they do. Like in 2011, before they started creating full Christmas shows for World of Color, they did like a little pre-show, and it was Prep and Landing, which was a holiday special
love
for
Prep
ABC.
and Landing.
Are you a big fan? Yeah, I like it.
I love Prep and Landing.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm a huge fan of just the franchise of Prep and Landing. I wish we could get more Prep and Landing. And it was just this little thing, you know, it was to advertise what was going on, the ABC special and the DVDs that were coming out. I love those characters. I love the idea of it. I love that they incorporated it into World of Color. I've never seen it in person. They didn't use the globes in this, but it was where they really incorporated a lot of the lights as well, where the audience was at. So it was I loved it because I love Prep and Landing.
Yeah, it starts very much like the special does, where it's the very like traditional Christmas, you know, chestnuts roasting on an open fire, and then all of a sudden it becomes like this very techie Christmassy celebration thing with these elves trying to help Santa and all this stuff, and it's fun. The thing that I loved about it, and once again, this was only a couple minutes long, but this did one of the best jobs of, you know, a lot of times when they add these tags, it'll be like there'll be a hard stop between the new thing and the original. This did a beautiful job transitioning into the World of Color show. Like, it was very seamless, and they did a great job.
Into it there. Yep.
Yeah.
The use of lasers too. I know other shows have done it as well, but that was so important to the story. How they go in, they do the laser scan. It just looked very unique, and they were just like upping the game and the use of that. Almost testing out like how else can we leverage that for future shows.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. And then, you know, they decided to up the ante a bit. So in 2013, they brought in this winter show, Winter Dream, so a more full-fledged winter holiday show than just the little beginning. And in the first year, it was interesting. They had this virtual honor choir, which I actually remember when they were auditioning this. Now, these days, with everything that's going on in the world, this whole, like, people performing in different locations and editing it together to become one thing.
I was thinking the same thing, yep.
It's very common now. And back when this premiered in 2013, they used this virtual honor choir where they basically anybody could send in a video. They sent you a musical part to sing, and you could send in a video, and they projected people's faces singing, and it was a beautiful song called Glow. But they only did that this one year, and it was kind of like before the proper show began. But it was beautiful and interesting, and I don't really know why they did it and or why they did it 1 year, but it was kind of cool.
Yeah, if there's one element of Winter Dreams I loved, it was that, and it was people from all over the world, and kind of just what so much of Disney stands for. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, or what you celebrate during this time of year. We're all one human race, and so I love that. I don't know why they took that out, but that is one for me. Winter Dreams is one thing I really did love about it, and it disappoints me that they took it out. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more things like that in the future now that everyone's kind of figured out, hey, we can do this thing where people could just use their webcams and record stuff and we can make it look decent.
Yeah.
And people will be okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been done for many years now, but it's becoming a very regular thing at the moment. Now, at this time as well, Glow with the Show was a big deal.
Yes.
And a lot of people had those Mickey ears on that,
You're sitting there going, boink, 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 with the wand changing your ear color, and Yeah,
and they also choreographed them to World of Color and or Fantasmic and the fireworks and stuff. So during, this Winter Dreams, they definitely had Glow with the Show happening at that point. That never caught on the way I think Disney wanted. I mean, they weren't cheap, so to get the only times you ever saw like an entire sea of people wearing them is when they were giving them away for promotional purposes. Otherwise, you'd see like a dozen throughout the crowds, and it's a little awkward, but they were cool. And when you've got a large group doing it, it's really beautiful to see that effect, and you can certainly find that online if you've never seen it.
I do wish that those would have caught on a little bit more, the ears there, but they were so expensive.
I think they were like $25 or something. And they weren't comfortable. They were like...
They hurt my head so bad. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I have such a large head already, so...
Yeah, between those two things, it's just, it didn't catch on, so I get it. But it was cool. So then Winter Dream starts. Now this... we were talking at the beginning about how awesome it is that it's like Walt Disney Presents. Well, literally that was removed and it became Olaf Presents Winter Dream. And it's like, what? Did you really just replace Walt Disney with Olaf? It's a little insulting.
This was a little bit of the beginning of Disney capitalizing on the whole Frozen craze, which I get. Frozen as a film, when it came out, took everybody off guard. No one was expecting Frozen to do as well as it did. You look at any Disney store, they were out of stuff. Disney did not know what to do. So they were doing as much as they can in the parks, especially to incorporate and capitalize on Olaf, on Elsa and Frozen. For me, that is the thing that turned me off for it.
Well, yeah, it was insane. And, the show was certainly not short of any Frozen stuff. Of course, Olaf hosts it, but then you've got, of course, Let It Go is in there. For some reason, In Summer is being sung in a show called Winter Dreams, which I get it. It's a snowman singing it, but I still was like, this feels really off. The stroke of genius in this show was the Toy Story Nutcracker, which I thought was brilliant, because not only does it make sense, I mean, in the Nutcracker, there are toys that come to life, so that makes sense. But then also they had the Nutcracker and Fantasia has a nice little marriage there. And they had the green aliens doing that dance that we normally see the mushrooms doing in the original Fantasia. Yes. I thought that was genius. I thought that was very, very, very funny. One interesting thing is, every once in a while a song comes out that is not a Disney song, but you listen to it and you're like, ooh, that sounds like a Disney song. And that is the case for the song Believe from the Polar Express, which is a Warner Brothers movie. And they use that song in this Winter Dreams, and it's not the Josh Groban version. It's a female voice singing it. But it's funny because Disney kind of takes ownership of it. I get it. They're paying rights. They're rightfully using it. But it does become kind of a Disney song at that point. I remember the same thing when they made that live action Peter Pan many years ago. The orchestrations of that felt very Disney, and I remember Disney using it in a ton of their ads. And it's just always funny to me when it's like, oh, Disney recognizes it and it's like, it's cool that we didn't write it, but we're gonna take ownership at this point. And they definitely do that with that song.
And Disney knows there are certain songs and things that come out that just feel very Disney. They tap into that magic, and Disney's like, okay, we'll give you how much money do you want? We'll take it. We'll use it. Yeah.
Exactly. And then at the end of this one, we do get Mater, kind of dressed as Rudolph and dragging the sleigh and stuff. And happy holidays, everyone. And, this was the time of Cars Land opening. So it totally makes sense.
And that soon got incorporated into all the commercials for Disneyland. You always had Mater taking the cars as Rudolph that same year.
Yeah, now Winter Dreams did get a 2.0 version in 2014. As I mentioned, the virtual choir at the beginning was removed. Also removed was the Olaf Presents. It was once again presented by Walt Disney, so that's nice. It began with a lot. This was even more Frozen heavy, which was interesting because more time had passed. But we get that opening song from Frozen, and then we get Do You Want to Build a Snowman, which makes sense. Love is an Open Door. I'm not sure what this has to do with Winter Dreams, but whatever, and then some sequences were the same. They definitely shook it up quite a bit, but the introduction that happened to this one that I am in love with, I think this was the first year that they incorporated the floating suds of sorts, not Snope, but it's basically a sudsy soap just like that in the shape of, in this case, a snowflake. They're about the size of maybe a pizza or something and they float up into the air. And it's this beautiful visual. It's basically like the replacement of releasing balloons to go floating because, it's bad for the environment. Yeah. This is kind of like the slow motion version of that, but it is so beautiful. And I think this Winter Dreams was the first time we saw this used, and it was used to much better effect years later, which we'll talk about, of course. But, the introduction of those snowflakes was reason enough for Winter Dreams to exist, in my opinion, because it was a great plus.
With every show, what I love is they're always pushing the boundaries a little bit, and then they incorporate what they've learned from that into other aspects of the park. For me, though, on my show, the other hosts like to say I hate Frozen. I don't hate Frozen. I just hate that it's so overused.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that way, but the fact is little girls still love it. You still want to dress like them, and it's still making them a lot of money. So I get why it's there. But for adults, we're sick of it. Yeah,
as a father of a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old, Frozen's been a part of their life their entire life, so it's enough already.
Yeah. Oh, really? Even they? Wow.
Oh no, not they, me.
You. I thought you were saying the 7 and 12-year-old. Yeah,
they can't get enough of it.
Exactly, and Disney loves that, and so we will keep getting it more and more and more. Now let's move to 2015, where I would say arguably the most infamous World of Color, Celebrate the Wonderful World of Walt Disney. This was during the Disneyland Diamond celebration, celebrating the 60th anniversary of Disneyland Resort. And now the plus that came with this was the introduction. They keep plussing this show with new technologies. This introduced projection on the Mickey face on the fun wheel, or the pal around at this moment. At that time, it would have been the fun wheel, I think, at that point.
It was fun wheel still, yeah.
Yeah, so it introduced that, which was a nice little plus, I would say. Tons more quote projections in this one, which you know how I feel about that. And, hosted by Neil Patrick Harris and Mickey Mouse, which, interesting, Mickey really not featured a ton in past World of Color. So it was nice to see him featured so much in this, I would say.
And this was a time where the Neil Patrick Harris thing, I remember seeing this for the first time. I was a little thrown off by it, but he was really on fire at that point. He was really popular. I think he was either just coming off of or was about to host the Oscars.
He had just done it.
He had just hosted the Oscars. Everybody wanted him. His Oscars hosting was not great. And it just, for me, it felt a little bit more pandering using him. Not that I love Neil Patrick Harris. I think he's great. Everything from Doogie Howser to How I Met Your Mother. I think he's a great actor, but I'm just he doesn't have to host everything. He had just done the Tonys too, and
Yeah, it was NPH saturation for sure at Disney. No question about it. I've heard, and I have no idea whether or not this is true, but I've heard he recorded his stuff for that the day after he hosted the Oscars and got pretty bad reviews for the Oscars and was very upset while shooting that. Whether or not that's true, I don't know.
But in his defense, him and his husband are huge Disney fans.
Totally. So am I,
off the charts.
So,
yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of people that Drew Carey's a huge Disney fan. Like, we don't need them constantly.
Yeah.
But listen, if I had the power that Neil Patrick Harris does and I could make a call and be like, yes, I'd love to be a part of that, guess what? I'd be oversaturated there too. So I don't blame him, but I got tired of it at that moment. And I think that was honestly part of the reason why this didn't catch on. Another big part was it felt like a show that belonged more in Disneyland Park than it did at Disney California Adventure.
Felt very Fantasmic, yeah.
Yeah, and it celebrated not only Walt Disney, but the history of the company and also Disneyland quite a bit. Because, at the beginning it honors Walt Disney, and then we kind of get like a Mickey Mouse history lesson, which, by the way, leads into some Sorcerer's Apprentice, which is a really good segment when you think about, the spilling of the water and the splashing of the water. It just makes sense to be as part of World of Color. Then we go into Walt's features that start with Snow White, which was, Walt's dream, and then a montage of his animated film, which leads into, of course, Let It Go. But I will say another thing that was added with this was the fog bursts that we got throughout the audience.
Yep.
We used to have the dancing fountains throughout the audience, and I think those have been removed since I think they've been removed.
Yeah, I haven't seen them. Last time I saw World of Color was this last December, and I don't remember seeing them incorporated at any point there. So
yeah, so they did incorporate like these cool fog bursts as part of Let It Go and as part of the show, which was really, really nice. And we get a moment of the Disneyland opening day speech, which is always wonderful. We get some Tiki Rooms, some Splash Mountain, some Cars Land, some Pirates of the Caribbean, some Haunted Mansion, some It's a Small World, and it's all lovely. But it was a little bit like, why is this more Disneyland centric than the fireworks celebration happening for the 60th anniversary over at Disneyland? That was a little confusing to people, I think, and rightfully so. I think that was in fact true, because what was the name of that show? Disneyland Forever over at Disneyland Park was the fireworks show, and it was more of just like a musical montage and less. In fact, Remember Dreams Come True was a more Disneyland centric fireworks show than Disneyland Forever, so it was weird to have a very Disneyland centric World of Color, I think, for people. But it's what we got. It's definitely my least favorite World of Color, I would say.
Yeah, it was weird having it, because even having, I know with the water there you have the Sorcerer's Apprentice, but even having Sorcerer's Apprentice there feels very Disneyland to me.
And very Fantasmic, right?
Very Fantasmic, very Disneyland. So I would love to see them really kind of focus more on what's going on with more of Pixar, which I think they'll probably do in the future. Now it's against Pixar Pier and stuff once the parks reopen. But yeah, it was strange. But it was the 60th. I don't think anyone knew what to do. And the 60th anniversary lasted like 3 years anyway. So they were just kind of like, how do we honor all of this? And it was kind of a miss, but I enjoyed it. Still fun, but yeah, I do like the original better.
It did introduce some other cool technology. So let's just recap here. First of all, the projection on Mickey's face. Mm-hmm. We got the fog bursts. And we also got this killer flamethrower. Now, flamethrowers have always been part of World of Color, but, they did a whole Star Tours thing, which then led into the latest Star Wars movie, which felt a little bit out of left field.
That was very forced.
They had forced. No pun intended. But they had a movie to promote, but this is when the giant flamethrower that goes as high as Mickey's Fun Wheel or the Pixar Pal Around, it's massive. And I believe this is the one that introduced it during that Star Wars segment. So for all of the tech that was introduced during Celebrate, I accept it.
Yeah. And even as you're going, everything's lit up. They have the entire screen at the time lit up, and it was just. It really it's kind of like The Good Dinosaur in Pixar. The movie itself was horrible.
I disagree.
But, my opinion, the movie itself was horrible, but what they did animation-wise was great. It's kind of the same the way I kind of see it. Is the same way. Wasn't their best storytelling show, but they incorporated a lot more technology that could be used to enhance other stories and other shows in the future.
Oh, The Good Dinosaur shade, man. That was rough.
I'm sorry.
We go from that show, which was my least favorite World of Color, to my absolute favorite, Season of Light. Have you ever been able to witness this one in person?
No, I have not,
okay.
Unfortunately.
This is one I would suggest anybody listening go out of your way to try and see this one in person. It is phenomenal. It is so high energy. The show starts, this is, their current Christmas show that they use, and it starts with this awesome battle of the fountains. I love it when the fountains like shoot toward each other and like basically they collide and make this giant splash. And it starts with that and this huge, orchestration. It's just like from the beginning, super, super, super fast paced. And I love it. We don't get Let It Go in this one, which is perfectly fine, but we do get Idina Menzel still singing with Michael Bublé as they do the whole Baby It's Cold Outside segment. Now they get you right in the feels with Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, with Finding Nemo, Toy Story, Dumbo. Dumbo always gets me. Rip your heart out at that moment.
This has to be my second favorite of all the World of Colors.
What's your first?
I haven't seen it. It's from the Oogie Boogie Blast, the Halloween Villainous.
We'll talk about that one next.
It is my favorite, and I haven't seen that one yet either. But Season of Light, the way they use the music and first of all, they take out all the Frozen, which not all the Frozen, take out a lot of the Frozen. It's not Frozen centric, which is great. But to have all those 1930s and 40s classic holiday songs, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, very Bing Crosby-esque. For me, holidays have always been about that music. I worked at Starbucks for 12 years, and so we had that music playing over and over again. So when I hear that, it screams holidays times to me. And it wasn't necessarily Disney songs, whereas so many of the other holiday ones, it was Disney songs, but they use these classic songs that everybody knows, which I think was really a genius thing to do. And just because those songs for so many people take you back to a good time or place. And so it just kind of incorporates more good memories with the good memories you're making while you're there.
Yeah, and they did it very smartly, I would say. Like, they did Mele Kalikimaka, which, of course, is the Hawaiian Christmas song, and guess what? Stitch was part of it. Totally makes sense.
Yep.
The Three Caballeros were part of Feliz Navidad. Totally makes sense. They did a whole Fantasia Nutcracker thing once again, now with more of actual Fantasia stuff other than Toy Story. They used the updated Pentatonics music from that, which was really cool. And then, the greatest part of this is, in my opinion, the whole goofy electrical, hanging the lights and getting electrocuted stuff. I believe it's Trans-Siberian Orchestra music, if I'm remembering correctly. So they did some great effects during this, very fast pace, very cool lasers. They do this awesome thing where they alternate the lights at a fast pace. So like basically the fountains look like they're jumping back and forth because they'll light it quick, shut it off, and then like alternate it with other lights. It's something you got to see. And as awesome and fast paced as all of this is, that goofy section especially is so cool. They bring it down toward the end. We get this beautiful section where all the screens are lit up with like candles and Esmeralda walking by from Hunchback of Notre Dame. And then it goes into Let There Be Peace on Earth, which I gotta tell you, like, it gets me emotional watching it. And this is when they once again use those floating suds effect. And instead of the snowflake shapes, they're now hearts. And you just had all of these hearts ascending toward the heavens during this beautiful arrangement of Let There Be Peace on Earth with these gorgeous fountains being choreographed. Like it's awe-inspiring. And I absolutely love Season of Light. Oh yeah. So good.
By far. And they really capitalized on the music. I think the music is what wins this one for me. It's like, yes, it's a legitimate holiday, winter, Christmas show. It's not a Disney Christmas show.
Exactly.
I was just about to say that it could fit almost anywhere. If the Bellagio decided to go ahead and revamp their fountains, they could do the same thing in front of theirs, and it would probably fit.
If you're talking about the soundtrack, yes, obviously they work a ton of Disney characters into it, but it's less commercial, I would say, than Winter Dreams. And I that was just kind of refreshing and unexpected and lovely and just beautifully done. I'm going to assume it's a lot of the same teams of people working on all of these, but if for some reason that was like a different group, bring them back, because that was amazing, amazing stuff. But let's jump to last year, 2019. We got, for the first time ever, a Halloween World of Color. It's called Villainous. It was only available during the Oogie Boogie Bash, which was a hard ticket event. I did see this one in person. Finally, after years of having a Christmas show, never featuring Nightmare Before Christmas, we finally get that in a World of Color. Of course, the host of this one is Oogie Boogie himself, and we get an original character named Shelly Murray, created by Eric Goldberg, who is a master hand-drawing animator over at Walt Disney Animation Studios. And do you know where Shelly Murray got her name?
I do not know.
It's a tribute to Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Now, this one, more than any other World of Color, the thing I like about it, and I will admit, I'm not crazy about this show. I know you say it's your favorite. I love Halloween. It's my favorite day of the year. I did feel like this show was a little bit of a miss, although I do appreciate them having a Halloween show and having a special thing like this during the Halloween party. But the thing I like most about it is the fact that it actually has a story, which I don't really think any World of Colors do. And honestly, it's the thing that probably bothers me most about World of Color is the fact that most of them are just montages and a theme. But this one actually has a story where this little girl is trying to figure out what she wants to dress up as for Halloween. And she, you know, are you going to go with the princess or are you going to go with more of the villain sort of thing? And it was basically like, embrace your inner villain. It's all right if you get that little dark side of you. And you go on a little journey with this character and a bunch of the Disney villains. Of course, we get the magic mirror, which of course, very reminiscent of Fantasmic. Starts with the Snow Queen, from the Snow White Queen rather, and Ursula. And, you know, once again, similar to Fantasmic in that sense. But I do like the fact that these characters interact a lot. So this isn't just like, hey, Ursula's here, let's just sing Poor Unfortunate Souls. She's legitimately like interacting with the character, which is cool.
Yeah. So Halloween is by far my favorite holiday. I love the storytelling throughout this, but also just the colors that just bring about Disney, the use of purple and green. It just... that, and then also the way they incorporated the fountains and the mist with lightning projections. You're looking at the lightning during the show. You're like, is that like, are they using actual lightning or is that a projection? You couldn't even tell, at least from the video. So it was just, I love everything about Halloween. So for me, I just resonated with it. I think the Halloween fireworks show at Disneyland is my favorite fireworks show. So this just was like, yes, more of this. Would have loved to have seen this in real life in person.
Well, I'm sure you will have future opportunities. So, but tell me, what'd you think about Ursula's minions singing during this? Because this was weird. This is where it kind of lost me. You have like Ursula's little, you know, minions, her little like decrepit mermaids that she's stolen and kept for herself, singing this song like it's kind of like up-tempo Poor Unfortunate Souls. It lost me. Did you like this?
That was the part where I was like, on the video you couldn't really tell like what, and then you realize, oh, it's the kept souls that who couldn't pay her back, who couldn't pay the price. It was a little creepy, and I will admit, if my children were younger, they probably would not have liked that. It felt off when, you know, it's Halloween. It's going to be a little bit scary, but that was just creepy. Like, okay, I get it. I get what you're trying to do. You know, Ursula is a very, very bad person, but yeah, she's kidnapped these souls for eternity. All right, moving on.
Yeah. Now this, of course, there were some of the villains more featured than others, but we see a bunch. We see Dr. Facilier, we see Hades, we see Chernabog, we see Jafar. And as I'm watching this, I'm like, you know what this just proves? Current Disney films don't have good villains.
They don't.
I feel like they were at least all from 10 years ago or earlier, which was so bad. We need some good villains in current Disney movies, I would say.
And that's definitely a trend within Disney movies right now. They took when Pixar became a part of Walt Disney Animation, they started, you know, mirroring more of what Pixar was doing. And Pixar is known for not necessarily having a villain. They might have an antagonist. So we don't have a whole lot of good Disney villains in any of the more recent Disney films, unfortunately. I mean, Frozen doesn't have a villain.
Yeah.
Wreck-It Ralph really doesn't have a villain. It's always situational, which is great. But I would love to see, another Ursula or someone they have to defeat, not just a situation. That is definitely the trend. Hopefully that will go back eventually.
One of the best ways they incorporated a villain in this, I think, was we see the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland just go off with her head, and it cuts to like the Headless Horseman from, yes. Ichabod. And I was just like, oh my God, we got that in there. Like, I love that. And guess what was back? Hellfire.
Hellfire was back.
Yes. I was so excited to have Hellfire back in there. As I said, I love that song. And it's this really sweet, villain Halloween show. At the end, the little girl does decide to dress up as a villain instead of a princess. And guess what? So does her mom. So it's a nice little happy ending. And they can be weird freaks together. Yay! Love it. But then it ends with, come on, don't tell me you liked this. The Disco Oogie Boogie Fever, where they literally projected a disco ball onto Mickey's Fun Wheel.
It fits into Oogie Boogie. I don't. For me, it was like, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
It worked. It worked for me. I understand why some people wouldn't like it. I do understand that. It's not very creepy, but yeah. It felt very Oogie Boogie to me, in line with what was going on in the rest of the park during the Oogie Boogie Bash. So yeah, it worked.
Yeah, there's always that line with Disney where it can't really be scary. So they're like, okay, we just terrified children off with their heads, right? It's like, let's throw a disco party at the end. So, well, I hope you get to see it in person sometime soon.
Yes.
Those were the big World of Colors. There were some smaller ones that have come along, like World of Color Hurry Home is something that they do during Lunar New Year. Did you have a chance to check this out?
I did watch that video. I didn't even know that was a thing. I really enjoyed it. Is that something they only do during Lunar New? I'm assuming during Lunar New Year, but only a specific day, or
no? It's throughout all of Lunar New Year. They'll do it, and of course, it features Mushu and Mulan. We even get Reflection in there, but it's a lot of traditional music as well. And there's a character in it called Little Lantern, which is really interesting because the original plans for World of Color included a character named Little Squirt. So they kind of went back to the original idea for World of Color and threw it into this Hurry Home Lunar New Year thing that they do, which is kind of cool. And it incorporates fireworks, which I always enjoy seeing.
Yes. And it wasn't just like big fireworks. It felt very much the kind of fireworks you would see and audio-wise in a Chinese New Year celebration, too. It wasn't just a big, Mickey ear fireworks. It was very in line with what you would see at a traditional, Chinese New Year celebration.
It's good stuff. And then New Year's Eve, they've also used that area for that, where they've done a countdown, lots of fireworks at that point, and done the fountains and stuff. So World of Color, the thing that I love about World of Color is that it's so adaptable. They've, in the past, they've expanded Pirates of the Caribbean segments to promote those films. They even did a Brave segment, much to my chagrin. But at the time, they had a movie to promote. And so it's just super adaptable. That's something you can't do with Fantasmic. Anything that has live actors in it, you can't change so quickly. And I'm not saying that this is a cheap or inexpensive change, but you're using the same technology.
Yeah,
to do a completely different show in many circumstances. So it is very, very cool. It's still a show that's unique to Disney California Adventure, even though Disney keeps expanding the use of these mist screens and stuff with stuff like over at Disney's Animal Kingdom. We got Rivers of Light, and it's expanding. But World of Color is still unique to Disney California Adventure. Although I wouldn't be surprised. Didn't Tokyo Disney Sea just recently closed Fantasmic? I wouldn't be surprised if they're getting themselves a World of Color.
They have all the money in the world to spend in Tokyo, and they are not afraid to flaunt it. If there's something at another park, they're like, okay, we can do that, but better. The Oriental Land Company, they throw money at things, and Disney loves it because the Imagineers especially love it because they can just be as creative, and money's not an issue. So I would not be surprised.
One of the things I also love about World of Color is it's as if Paradise Lagoon was built for the purpose of World of Color. And I'm always impressed by this because that whole Paradise Lagoon, or maybe they call it Pixar Lagoon now, I'm not even sure. But that water in Disney California Adventure, it was there just as, decoration, something beautiful to look at that worked with the whole Paradise Pier theme. And to think that this grew out of it, it just feels like it was always meant to be there. The way that, to me, Cinderella Castle now feels like it was always meant to have matte projection, considering they literally made most of it white. It was, it looks like it was made for that purpose. So I think it's amazing that these Imagineers who create these things take these areas of the parks that already existed and put something in there that feels so natural and not forced at all. I think that that's a huge an impressive achievement that they do. And I think it's wonderful.
They keep pushing the boundaries further and further along. And it is so adaptable, and they can take that technology and put it over into other parks. And exactly.
So fantastic. Well, happy 10th anniversary to World of Color. I cannot believe it's been 10 years, but they have brought a lot of fantastic DCA memories to me. And, it is an impressive show. It's, like I said, unique to DCA, and I love it. But anything else you want to say about World of Color before we get some trivia?
It's always been that thing that I look forward to, getting the Fast Pass for World of Color, getting there, sitting down there. It's just a part of our trips to go down. For so long, I didn't get to go to Disneyland. And then as an out-of-towner, we got annual passes, so we're there once a month. And it's just one of those things you have to do it one of the nights you're there. And it's just kind of a staple now, which is weird, having grown up in Southern California, and when DCA was first opened, it wasn't even a part of it. Now I can't even imagine DCA or Disneyland without it. So it's just become such an integral part of the Disneyland resort.
Excellent. Well, let's get to some trivia then.
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
Alrighty, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
I will start off with mine. This was a question that was asked of me and my spouse. We were on the Walking in Walt's Footsteps tour. If you have not had a chance to take that tour when Disneyland opens back up, I would encourage you to do it. Get to go into Walt's apartment. It's just amazing. And you have the headsets where they're playing the music, and the plaid is taking you all throughout the parks, and it gets real emotional. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but yeah, it's really good. You need to go see it. So we're having the part of that tour is you have lunch, and my spouse and I were sitting with the plaid because we wanted to look important, sitting with the plaid, like, oh, who's that? We're sitting with the plaid talking to her about how much we love Disney and her Disney experience, and she's trying to stump us. We got it. And so she asked us this question about the Disneyland resort. She's like, Disneyland Resort only has one ride. What is it? And we're like, what do you mean Disneyland Resort only has one ride? Like, it only has one ride. So my question is for you, what is the one ride in the Disneyland Resort?
I mean, obviously this is some sort of trick question. Are you saying like the word ride is in the title of it or something?
Yes.
Is it the monorail?
No.
The word, like the trolley or something like that?
No. Fun fact, I didn't know this until that day. Cast members aren't allowed to call rides.
Yeah, they're attractions.
They're attractions. So,
which, by the way, no, I'm gonna go off on this. It drives me nuts because people will often tell me you shouldn't use the word ride. I'm like, I'll stop using the word ride when Disney stops naming stuff like the Great Movie Ride or the they've used the word Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. In fact, that's the answer to the question.
That is the answer to the question, yes.
Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. I'm like, come on, you can't use the word ride in attractions. And that, and I've heard numerous Imagineers use the word ride. So although I appreciate the sentiment that people who write in have when they say that, it's BS because they're rides. But yes.
Oh, the rest of my co-hosts would love you for saying that. They're going to get all over me for that.
No, I mean, it just is.
Oh,
it is. But Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, yeah. The rest are attractions. That's right.
The rest are attractions. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, for you, I want to ask, of course, we're talking about World of Color, and there was the TV show Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color. But that same show, it began as Walt Disney's Disneyland, the TV show, and it had many other different names. Can you name any of the other names? Perhaps the one that was before and after Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color, or I don't know. Can you name any of them?
Oh, goodness. I know the Disneyland show there.
So yeah, Walt Disney's Disneyland was 1954 to 1958. Then it had a different name from 58 to 61.
Oh, wow. I know there's one I just can't get it out of my mouth. What is it?
Well, what do they call it these days? Do you know what they call it these days?
Yeah, it's on ABC on Sunday nights.
The wonderful.
I don't know.
You got it. You were just about to say it. The Wonderful World.
Wonderful World of Disney.
Yes. So the current one is The Wonderful World of Disney. Started out as Walt Disney's Disneyland. Then it became Walt Disney Presents. Then it became Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color. Then it became The Wonderful World of Disney. Then it became Disney's Wonderful World. Then it became Walt Disney. Then it became the Disney Sunday Night Movie, or the Disney Sunday Movie. Then it became the Magical World of Disney, and now it is known as the Wonderful World of Disney. So the name Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color, which of course World of Color is named after, ran from 1961 to 1969. So many, many different iterations of that title, which is interesting. One other thing, this isn't really a trivia question, I just came across this and I thought it was a fun little fact, so I'm going to read it. But when preparations for World of Color began, the Disneyland Resort collaborated with the Orange County Water District to conserve the water in Paradise Bay. Instead of draining the lagoon to the ocean, the water was sent through the Water District's state-of-the-art groundwater replenishment system. After being purified, the water was stored in the county's underground water basin, which added to the overall water reserves. When the time was right, the purified water was used to refill Paradise Bay. For these efforts, along with the resort-wide environmental practices, Disneyland Resort was recognized with California's highest and most prestigious environmental honor, the 2009 Governor's Environmental and Economic Leadership Award. Kind of cool.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised to read that. And what a process to drain it essentially into a holding tank and then bring it back. I was like, oh, very cool. I like it. Well, Andy, thank you so much for coming on and talking about 10 years of World of Color. Before we go, why don't you let folks know where they can find you and what you're up to?
First of all, thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm usually brought on other Disney shows to talk about movies, but I have such a love for Disneyland and the Disneyland Resort. Growing up in Southern California and going back with my family now, I'm a geek about it. So thanks for having me on. You can find me at Andy is a Film Geek on Twitter or Instagram or on YouTube, youtube.com/Andy is a Film Geek, where I talk about Disney. Also, been hosting the DCast Podcast Network, the official podcast network of the DisInsider.com. We have 5 shows covering Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and just a roundtable show every week. Just go to DCast.com for that. And yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Now, folks, if you haven't listened to this past Wednesday's episode of Disney Coast to Coast, check it out, as I have a discussion with Adam Wachter from the Disney Plus series Encore about the music that theater legend Stephen Sondheim wrote for Dick Tracy. And on next Wednesday's episode, it's another theater-inspired episode to celebrate this month, which would typically be theater award season, about my favorite Disney theatrical show. Be sure to subscribe to Disney Coast to Coast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more of your favorite podcast listening platforms so you don't miss any of the magic. And before we go, I want to give a shout out to Skylar Sandoval, who is the latest person to become a member of the DCTC community over at patreon.com/DisneyCTC. Thank you so much, Skylar, for helping to ensure that more free episodes of Disney Coast to Coast can continue to be produced. If you're able to support the show, like Skylar, and gain some rewards along the way, head to patreon.com/DisneyCTC to see what's waiting for you. That's patreon.com/DisneyCTC. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.